Hey guys, it is Monday night at 9:45. Bitcoin's back to 96,000. And this episode is going to be about the far, far future when we're fully hyper-Bitcoinized. And I'm just going to do a thought experiment on where interest rates, lending, and what the world kind of looks like. So this is almost a very Jeff Boothian kind of thought experiment. I think it'll be very interesting, and I think I've got some new points, things that Booth did not think of, and this really goes back to my history, and I spent most of my life thinking and about finance, interest rates, bonds, all these things. But now we have this new thing, which is Bitcoin, and how do those two worlds sort of where are we going with this? So, as usual, I'm going to beg you to please go to my YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button. Kind of helps me out. I'm a little bit of a subscription junkie. And it helps out what I'm doing with Wayne, the Bitcoin First project, which I'm really excited about. I think we're getting some really great guests. And so, anyways, hit the subscribe. Now, I put out a tweet about this this subject, and it's going to be a fairly long discussion. You know, at some point we're going to discuss this at Bitcoin First also, but I just want to go about this and talk about interest rates and lending in a Bitcoin-only world. So, you know, I started putting just a few question marks out, like, hey, where do you, in a world of just Bitcoin, where are interest rates? And people are like, there can't be any borrowing. I'm like, what do you mean there can't be any borrowing? They're like, no, it's impossible. We're going to have deflation. I'm like, okay, we have deflation, but people are going to need to continue to borrow. They're going to need to build houses, and they're going to need to buy houses, and they're going to need to borrow money for businesses. So we're not going to stop life just because we're in this Bitcoin world. So I thought about it more, and I posted this poll. I said, where do you think interest rates are going to be in a Bitcoin-only world? And people were like all over the map. Some people said 2%, some people said 0%, some people said 6%, other people said it's going to be extremely high. And, you know, I sort of thought about it a little bit, and then I basically started really this thought experiment, and this is kind of the conclusions that I came up with. Okay, so the first seems a little bit obvious, but it's actually very subtle, right? Which is short rates will no longer be determined by the Fed. So, you know, for as long as I've been alive, for as long as my father's been alive, it's always been don't fight the Fed. The Fed controls short rates. And you know, Joe Carlos-Ali will say, you know, they control the short rates, but they don't control the long rates. Very true. But they do have this complete and utter power to set the interest rate in the short term. That goes away with Bitcoin, because if we're in a complete Bitcoin world where there is no fiat, there's just one currency, Bitcoin, really central banks can't determine interest rates. So I think that at this point becomes a worldwide market for capital. And there's interest rates for various creditworthy people, but there's no sort of short-term risk-free rate like we're so accustomed to now. So point number two is basically we're going to have this myriad of worldwide interest rates. Some will be very low. Some people are going to be able to borrow extremely low. Others are going to have to pay a very, very high price. It really depends on who you are, what kind of company you are, what kind of individual you are, what kind of government you are. Interest rates could be all over the map. Point number three is ultimately, you know, Jeff Booth is right. Inflation's history. In a world where we are hyper-Bitcoinized, we are deflating. What's the rate of deflation? I don't know. Could be 5%. I don't know. Definitely people will save. Some people say, well, are they going to say they're not going to consume anything? No, people will still consume. We're humans. We consume. We buy houses. We send our kids to college. We do all these things. That's what we do as humans. So we're definitely not just saving. But we'll do a lot of saving, right? Especially if we know that there's no inflation and things get cheaper. Point number 4 is we're really going to be in a global world, right? So right now we have, if you're in the US, you care about what the Fed does. You care about the dollar. You don't really care about the yen. I mean, you might follow the yen. You might go to Japan and go, oh, wow, things are cheap because the dollar's strong relative to the yen. But, really those are two separate economies. That's not going to be the case, right? Because we are now going to be in a world where there's one currency everywhere, Bitcoin. Every business is going to have to compete worldwide for funds. Now, a business in Argentina, it may be well known to the Argentinians, but not well known to the Germans. So there will still be local lending because they understand the business better. People in Argentina may understand the value, the collateral of real estate better than somewhere else in the world. But we're going to deal with a single currency, and so it's going to be a world issue. Point number 5 is it's going to be extremely collateral heavy. It's one thing to sort of say, well, I'm going to get the government to kind of bail me out, or the government can print money forever, or if something goes really wrong, they're going to send me a lifeline, the bank's going to bail me out, all this stuff. That will stop. We're going to be in a world where, defaults happen. And so I think that world is going to go back to being heavily collateralized. You can borrow, you can get Bitcoin against your house, but your house equity will be scrutinized. You want to borrow for a business? Well, prospects of your business are going to be looked at very carefully. You're a government, we're going to check how good a government, how good are you running your shop? So that's that. The next point is, if you're really great, just like now, you're going to get very, very low yields. But they're going to be close to zero because unlike now where you have to bake in whatever the Fed's charging, no, if you're Apple or Google or something like that, you're going to be able to borrow at essentially zero, right? Because there's no sort of risk-free rate. The best companies will have the lowest rates on the planet. Point number 7, I think, is that DeFi is going to basically eat TradFi. So once we've really gone this route of programmable world money, there's going to be all these kind of DeFi things where people's online credit scores get passed in through DeFi engines. You're going to have decentralized loans. And, lending is going to become a worldwide thing, and it's going to be done by machines, and it's going to be done by AI. So I don't think TradFi is going to necessarily win in this world. I think it's going to be DeFi. It's going to be automated. It's going to be anonymous, or it's going to be, I won't say anonymous, but it's going to be, you won't need to go meet somebody to do any of this stuff. It'll just be click a button. Point number 8 is going to be survival of the fittest. There won't be any room for zombie companies that just got to where they are by being close to the money printer. That stuff's going to go away. Everything is going to get much more productive and innovative. And point number 9, that applies to governments as well. So if you're doing these socialistic programs like France is doing right now, or Japan, nobody's going to want to lend you money. And that means your yield's going to go through the roof. And don't even think about doing QE or anything else. You can't do it. You can't print money anymore. You have no means of being fiscally irresponsible. And the last point is that all this is just terrible for banks. Banks are going to die. I mean, they're not going to quite die, but basically it's like record stores. You don't see a whole lot of them right now. I think they're going to, you don't see a lot of video rental stores either. I think banks, we don't need them. They're going to, at best, be sort of low margin custody operations. They're not going to employ all these people. And that is roughly my presentation for today. Obviously, it's just a work in progress. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to upload this. It's been 11 minutes. Hit the like button, subscribe to my YouTube, and I will catch you online or on the Bitcoin First. Come by our Bitcoin First. We'd love to have you participate in the discussion, help make Bitcoin better, and we'll talk soon. See ya.